Why was it published? What was it for? Anyone with common sense would know that it was a 19th century publication, but why? Why would they do that? Why would Joseph Smith, if he made it up, why would he make this up? What was his purpose? What was his intent? Because obviously he got killed because of it, was murdered. And the United States legal system did nothing about his murder, neither his nor his brother's. But again, as you go through these lessons in the Book of Mormon, as you begin to learn the reality, you're going to have things, you're going to have a truth, the real truth. I'm going to take you to something that someone found. It's an incredible meme, I guess you could say. Here's what this work is all about. This is what this work is all about. When you understand these things, you will understand the incredible importance of this work. Okay? So, here you have what the MWAW has actually registered as a trademark. The real truth. The real truth is, for example, this cylindrical little piece of tube. So when you can see on this side here, this gives you this is an idea about perspective. What is the real truth? There's only one real truth. This might be, for example, science. It might be science. Science says, I'm looking towards this wall of science, and this could be religion. So I'm looking towards what you see there on the screen, the left side, the left wall there, and I see that it's a light with a circle, a dark circle. That is what is true. It's true. I can observe it. I can see it. If it could be sight, sound, that's what I can see. That's what I observe, because that's what I look to. I look to science for this perspective of things. And then you might have the religious people looking to the right there, to the right side, and this is the religious perspective. Look, no, it's a square. I know it's a square. I can see it. I can feel it. It's what it is. It's a dark square on that wall. In reality, you can see what it is. This is the real truth. This is what the marvelous work of the wonder. This is what this incredible work brings to the world. It's what it does. So, when it comes to the Book of Mormon, it's vital and important that a person understands what it actually says, what it actually teaches, because many times a person is not given the real truth about what is said and what the book is about. It's not because this church, which I call the most evil religion upon earth because of how much it has and how it's deceived the world, especially when it comes to the Book of Mormon. It has deceived the world, thus creating perspectives of different things. Okay? So, I want to give you, for example, perspective about something that was said about how the United States took over the Western Hemisphere and disseminated. I'm going to copy and paste this, and basically wiped out the Native American peoples. Native American people, they just wiped them out. Here's what Theodore Roosevelt said about the expansion of the white race in the United States of America. Let me see if I can get it here. This is what Theodore Roosevelt, his perspective on the matter. Let me put it here and see if this comes out right. There it is. Perfect. Here is an actual quote from Theodore Roosevelt. There's one feature. Let me go ahead and put quotes in here so you know. This is from Theodore Roosevelt for those who want to look it up and verify it. Hold on. Here we go. Okay? Theodore Roosevelt said this. There is one feature in the expansion of the peoples of white or European blood during the past 4 centuries which should never be lost sight of, especially by those who denounce such expansions on moral grounds, which many people do. They call it colonialism, imperialism. It's where the white people went in there and basically wiped out, took all the Native American land and made it their own, and manifest destiny. Adam and Eve were white. God's white. white's the best thing, the curse of Cain is the dark skin, and all these different things that Christians believe. But there's another perspective. There's another perspective that I want to share with you here. And this perspective, those of you know that I've been talking about the LDS influence on the Wounded Knee Massacre. Sorry, I'm copy and pasting this thing that I got. This is from a Black Elk. And what he did, he was a young boy when all this took place. So in 1930, he published, there were some things that he said that were published and he was quoted. And here's what he said. Black Elk said about this Wounded Knee Massacre, which I believe is directly opposite or directly diametrically opposed to what Theodore Roosevelt said. You give me your opinion, what you think. Here's what Black Elk said. Here's what he said. So when he was a youth, and he saw what happened. He saw what happened to the Native American people at the Wounded Knee Massacre. And when you get some of these apologists and these Mormon people who say, no, that's not right, the Mormons had nothing to do with it. Oh, yes, they did. All you got to do is think, and all you got to do is be honest. The real truth. That's, again, what's the real truth? What is the real truth about what happened back then? So he's quoted as saying, this Black Elk, oops, hold on, let me get it. It's quoted as saying, when it talks about what happened back then, let me put this out here, if you can see that. Quote, sorry folks, I'm doing the best I can here. I did not know then. When he was an old man, he went back to the spot where the Wounded Knee Massacre had taken place. And I believe that Black Elk's comments are direct opposite of Theodore Roosevelt's. Okay? I did not know then how much was ended. When I look back now from this high hill of my old age, I can still see the butchered women and children lying heaped and scattered all along the crooked gulch, as plain as when I saw them with my eyes still young. And I can see that somebody else died there in the bloody mud and was buried in the blizzard. A people's dream died there. It was a beautiful dream. The nation's hoop is broken and scattered. There is no center any longer, and the sacred tree is dead. Again, these two comments for those, I wish that a person would never come into one of these podcasts and just come into it without starting at the beginning. This comment right here was made, crap. Sorry, folks. And this is why I need a producer, but there's not really anything anybody can do. I'm by myself. So I can't get my thing back. There we go. There we go. Sorry, folks. So this comment right here was a guy named Black Elk. And all the creation enemies, you foolish people, have to do is look up these things, and you can find these references out there on the internet. This is from a guy at Black Elk. I think it was given in 1930. When he was a young kid, he was there in the Wounded Knee Massacre. And this was by a U.S. president. His name was Theodore Roosevelt. One of the most evil men in U.S. history, and people just think he's so wonderful, especially conservationists. Theodore Roosevelt was the one who started all the national parks. Anyway, so here's what the truth is. This is what LDS, this is what modern Mormons, modern LDS Mormon people believe. They believe that indeed, discounting the Book of Mormon and what the Book of Mormon says, they don't care what the Book of Mormon says. They care what their leaders say, what their prophets, seers, and revelators of their church, whom they believe get inspiration and direction from God. This is what they believe. We've showed you evidence of that. We showed you evidence of behind the scene. A recording was taking place with members, the quorum of the 12 apostles and presidents of the church, of that church, where a senator, a U.S. Senator Hansen, got up there and said, look, basically he said, well, wherever the United States soldiers go, God, after they go in there, God sends in his missionaries. Yeah, it's sick. But this is what the modern LDS Mormon truth is. This is their truth. This is their truth. Okay? Now, on the other side, there's this truth. Now, there are things about the Wounded Knee Massacre that most people don't understand. But when they understand what was happening back in the late 19th century, the late 19th century when the Wounded Knee Massacre took place, the late 1800s, what was going on then was the Indians were not being very good people either. Because they had been so abused, they were doing a lot of bad things too. They were being bad. They were doing bad things. And so because of the pride of the Indian people, they fought against what they knew that they couldn't win the United States military. They just couldn't do that. So pride led those people, and it caused a lot of them to be massacred by very evil people, many of whom were Latter-day Saints. When you understand what the Bear River Massacre was, look it up. See the connection between, as I have explained, between that situation and a guy named Orrin Porter Rockwell, which was a hero that developed out of the history of the Mormons. They think he was such a hero. They think Brigham Young was such a hero. I'm telling you that this prophet, this guy named Wokova, who's known as the Lakota Paiute prophet, that went among the people back in that time and told them that the Mormons had a great book, an idea that showed them how wonderful they were as a people, and that one day Christ would come, return to the earth, and reestablish them in their land in the New Jerusalem, taking this all from his reading of the Book of Mormon, which he embraced and taught in a different way to these other people, which caused the people to rise up. This was called, his Indian name was Wokova. I can't remember his name was. They called him Jack Wilson, I think. But this prophet Wokova, he was influenced by Book of Mormon, what the Book of Mormon said, and it basically said that it gave this people this hope, and also because of his vast amount of association with Mormons and what the Mormons believed during the late 19th century. He was taught that they had special garments, thus leading to the garment, the special shirt that these drunk Indians had on when there was hundreds of them gathered together, and the United States military thought that they were going to rise up and kill settlers there. Anyway, when you understand a lot about this stuff, you have to look between the lines to get the real truth, folks. To get the real truth, in this truth here, you must not believe either side. You must learn to use common sense. As I've revealed before, though, before I get on this lesson, this great bait and switch, as I've revealed before, when it comes to our universe, let me explain this once again. Okay? The real truth will only come from not looking at this side, not looking at this side. Forget about that. Stand in the corner as a little child would and observe this thing. Well, I see it. It is actually a round, hollow, spherical thing that's happening here. Okay? So, I say it's not spherical. I'm sorry, it's not hollow. Obviously, it's not hollow, or this here would be light. You look at it as a child and say, oh, this is what really happened. But nobody's given that. Science is not giving the real truth. Neither is religion. Philosophers don't need the real truth. You must see this. You must see this actual thing. This here. What is it? Before you can really understand what the truth is about anything. Your hell or heaven, as I explained it in yesterday's sermon, depends on your perspective of this and what you do with that perspective. The American patriotic Mormon people, LDS, Latter-day Saint people, believe that it was a good thing that the Indians were destroyed because of the things that they were doing to each other. There was many things that were going on. But the other side of the culture, they don't believe that to be the case. Just like I said, what Roosevelt said about these people is that there's one feature in the expansion of the peoples of white or European blood during the past 4 centuries, which should never be lost sight of, especially by those who denounce such expansion on moral grounds. On the whole, the movement has been fraught with lasting benefit to most of the peoples already dwelling in the land over which the expansion took place. Same thing you can say about slavery. We can make the same thing. I've been making these comparisons for a long time. What if there wasn't slavery? And there was this isolation of the dark-skinned races in the world, and they never allowed the white races who came up with all the technology, never allowed the black-skinned races to incorporate or assimilate. What would have happened? Giving you all these different perspectives. That's my job. My job is to say this to you folks. My job is to present to you the tree of life. Okay? Here's my little tree that I often use. The tree of life. That has on it, on the tree of life, on its branches, is hanging the fruit of real truth. It's the fruit of real truth that once you taste thereof, you'll never forget it. And you'll understand what it means, and you'll understand that it's purely a way that human beings can see and observe the real truth. When you partake of the real truth, and you understand the real truth, things as they really are, your heart is filled with more compassion, more kindness. However, in yesterday's sermon, I was a little bit perplexed about what I said. Of course, this is the tree of life. And again, in a religious context, as my predecessor taught it, cherubim and a flaming sword was placed before the tree of life, lest Adam and Eve, you folks, put forth your hand and eat thereof and live forever in your sins. And here's kind of what that means. I'm going to explain the real truth. I'm going to explain it because you have to be a true messenger of God to understand the real truth. That actually, it's not science. It's not religion, doesn't agree with any of those. It's a transparent thing that makes more sense than anything else you have ever considered regarding existentialism, which is the human nature of thinking about their existence. The real truth transcends science. It transcends science. It transcends religion and philosophy. And all these things are different forms of each other. Religion and philosophy. And when you understand the real truth and the transitory state that it takes your mind, it makes sense. And that's how you tell that it's real truth. After it's told to you, nothing else makes any sense. Okay, I explain this. Let me get to another picture here. I explain what happens in the universe. When you die, you're going to find out that everything that I've explained throughout this work, every single thing that I explain, is the real truth. Absolutely everything. Let me go here and get this photo. And I explained this yesterday, but I didn't like my explanation. So let's go here to this picture here. Ah, crap, sorry. To stop sharing that, I got to get this picture. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad here. Okay. Let me bring up that picture. Share it here. I'm getting better, but I still have some ways to go. Yesterday, a gentleman asked me this. I was describing, before I get into this incredible evil bait and switch, I want to address something that I said during the sermon yesterday, and I think you folks will appreciate it. My friend Kyle Bradford, a good supporter, he loves the Book of Mormon. The guy loves the Book of Mormon. He read it time and time again as he was a kid growing up in that church, but he never understood it. It wasn't until he finally found the tree of life and started partaking of that fruit, the real truth, that he finally started to understand that incredible book. Yesterday, we talked about hell and heaven. I explained that these are perspectives that cause you to feel an emotional negativity or a positivity. Makes you feel bad or makes you feel good. Negative, positive. Okay? I explained, and what he did, he came up with he said, wait a minute though, when I think about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it causes me to have a negative feeling, to feel that feeling of hell. And then I took him to a Book of Mormon explanation. You can go back and see how that was. I'm gonna add to this so that you understand this, to help you to understand. If you observe a situation or act that's happening upon this earth, let's say that this is our solar system right here. Our solar system. Our solar system. If you are part of a experience that occurs in this part of our Milky Way galaxy, and this is just an artist's conception, go with me on this. If you took place, and what he did, this atomic bomb, he referenced the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima and the other one on Nagasaki. Okay. He referenced that when he thought about these things, it took away his peace. Yes, because I related heaven and hell simply to peace and the lack of peace. Peace, no peace. All an emotional battle that's going on inside your head that you can verify from the actual unfolding of John's book of Revelation in 666, Mark of America's Seed of the Beast, the unfolding of John's Revelation, published in 2006 by this incredible work. Tells you the real truth. I talked about the Battle of Armageddon that goes on in everybody's mind. This is an actual emotional battle. It has nothing to do with a physical battle. When you read the thing in the book of Revelation in context, you'll understand this. But what Mr. Bradford was trying to tell me, when he thought about when atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and what happened, it caused him hell and no peace. And I explained some things in the Book of Mormon. You can go review that. Now let me address this a little bit. Even when I'm a very miserable person most of the time because of what's going on this planet. I have no peace. None. So I'm in hell. I'm in a general hell most of the time. Especially when I have to explain these things to the world. And I wish I could just shut my mouth and be like everybody else supposed to be. Just love people. Just love people. Love people and let them believe as they want because you should. They're going through this experience. So when Kyle thinks about Hiroshima and Nagasaki and what happened, it brings him into a state of hell. So I don't know if I clarified that you're going to have these feelings. But the question that you need to ask yourself, this is you. This is you as a mortal. The mortal you need to ask yourself, were you involved on Earth in this solar system when this event took place? Were you involved? Were you alive in the 1940s? Kyle was not. And therefore, in 2024, when he considers what the United States did to the innocent men, women, and little ones in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it creates a negativity for him. So Kyle, okay, we'll get this down. So let's say that this solar system right here is where your true self is. When you die, folks, it doesn't matter what you believe. You can be atheistic, agnostic, scientific, whatever, you're going to find this out when you die, that you're actually a highly advanced human being living in a highly advanced world in another solar system in this galaxy, most people in this galaxy. Okay? That you are connected through the energy, electromagnetic energy between brains of your mortal self here and your true self here. Okay? You're going to find it when you die. Rest in peace. This is my headstone. Rest in peace. My headstone. This is disconnected. But the atomic, for example, your true self had a mortal life in the 1940s when an atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. When the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and if you lived upon the earth in the 1940s at that time, okay, You had some sort of an emotional reaction. It was either one of peace or one of happiness. There were millions of Americans living in the United States that were very positive because Truman decided to drop that bomb on those Japanese cities and end World War II, or end Japan's involvement in World War II. They were happy. They had a positive, peaceful experience. Yes, peace. We got peace. War is over. Millions of you had that positive feeling. And there were millions more upon earth that had a negative feeling. So, Kyle, going back to Kyle, he might have been living in the 1940s, as I explained resurrection back then, or he might not have. But let's say, for want of a better explanation and understanding, that this guy, Kyle Bradford, actually did live in another incarnate during the 1940s, that he did. Very well could have been. Kyle B. So, when Kyle B., who is now known as Kyle B. in 2024, dies, Kyle Bradford's true self is going to be able to access the acts that happened and occurred in this solar system. All the acts, all the events, everything. Everything is recorded. When you understand how it's recorded, I've explained it digitally. It's not exactly that. It's recorded in the dark matter, in the expanse of space, the cloud, the universal cloud, that is encapsulated inside the pole of the sun and the gravitational pull of the solar system. Everything that happens in the universe, and that is recorded. All one has to do with the proper technology, which would be an advanced brain, is access. Kyle B's true self can access the time when he lived as a she or he in the 1940s as a different person. And that's how it works. And let me tell you, let me explain this. I'm using a hypothetical. If, in fact, during the 1940s, Kyle was a patriotic American, God bless America, patriotic, and he didn't care about Japanese or Germans or anybody else. He cared about the United States. And, well, he might have. But when he was a patriotic American and he had a sense of happiness or peace when literally hundreds of thousands of men, women, and innocent children were killed, as his true self, when this guy, let's call him Bradley Nelson, who lived in the 1940s, Bradley Nelson, okay? Here is Kyle living, Kyle's true self, participating upon Earth in this solar system in the 1940s. And as a patriotic American, when all this took place, it was awesome. Cheering in the streets. Yes, the war's gone. Yes, lives were sacrificed, but who cares? I have peace because of this. This is wonderful. And now Kyle's born in, I don't know when he was born, Kyle, when you were born, 80s? Not whatever he was born. Now in 2024, when Bradley Nelson died in the 1940s and became his true self, he was in literal hell. He was received in a state of hell because he remembered that while he was here and he actually experienced this event that happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, he had a positive feeling of peace. But now he's in hell because of his works. And that concerned him greatly. So obviously, any advanced human being who's in hell wants to relieve themselves of this hell. And the way that an advanced human does that is to place themselves back in this planetary system, in another body, in another incarnate, to again see if, again, in another situation, understanding different things, if they're still going to think of this as a positive thing, because they're always trying, your true self will always try to eliminate this feeling of hell, this feeling of non-peace, this feeling of negativity. How in the world was I happy? How in the world did I find peace when people were being destroyed like that? But you did. And so the negativity that you have is the hell you're going through. So then Kyle B was born again. And let's say he was born, he continued as an LDS Mormon, which he was. And he continued to believe that God gave the United States the nuclear power so that they could end that war, and it was a positive, patriotic thing. God bless America. It's wonderful. Kyle Bradford, not knowing that he used to be Bradley Nelson, when he dies, he's going to go back to his true self, and he's find, oh my gosh, even given myself another chance upon this earth, in this solar system, to review what had happened, I still thought it was good. I still embrace the American way, the patriotical way. So he's going to die again and have more evidence of the type of human being he really is. After time and time, this going on for billions of years, if you really understand how it all happens, and this Kyle B's true self realizes that, oh my God, when I am immortal and I don't realize who I really am, and when I'm true to my Holy Ghost, what makes me happy and what doesn't, I find out that in my happiness, others are experiencing misery. This is terrible. I don't want to keep doing this. This is when Kyle B's true self, who was Bradley Nelson and many other people throughout time, decides to end his existence. He decides, I'm going to try again. He ends his existence as an advanced human being and it starts all over again. That'll be explained some other time. This is eternal hell that you're in. So what humans are trying to do, human beings, the advanced human beings to whom this solar system is assigned, when you understand it, this solar system right here was designed and created by advanced human beings that live here. My predecessor outlined them in his incredible symbolic play as Jehovah, and Michael. Three gods, three advanced humans. Elohim said, Jehovah, Michael, see matter unorganized there. Let's go organize it into the world like unto the ones we have heretofore created. Look at all these worlds, folks. They have heretofore created. Then in the universe, heretofore created. All these so that these people can have experience. When you understand how this works, you'll find that the whole idea of having any experience as a human being is in the pursuit of joy. That's it. But when you are a person, and in your pursuit, your personal pursuit of joy, you cause another person misery, no advanced human being wants that to be the case. But as you understand advanced people and what their pride is and what they try to do in their eternal state, their eternal nature, then you will see why they try so hard to develop other worlds and prove themselves. To see what they would do in a situation where they don't even know that they're an advanced human being. They connect to this. They have a mortal avatar here. How do they act? Okay, so to Mr. Bradford's question, I would say, of course, you're going to feel bad about certain things that happen in our solar system upon Earth. You're going to feel bad about that, especially when you know the real truth. The only question you need to ask yourself when you get in front of the bar of God, the only question where you are judged, and when this is explained to you, you'll find out it's our true selves judging themselves. Okay? When you judge yourself and when you are judged, you're going to judge yourself on the events that you witnessed or participated in while you were going through the days of your probation. Days of probation up on the earth. Only then can you properly judge yourself because you weren't alive. You weren't a person in this solar system and other things. But now you can judge yourself during the days of probation based on what your reaction was. If your reaction was, I absolutely hated what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you're good. You're good. You're going to be received in the state of happiness as your advanced self. Here. Doesn't matter what you're saying out there, folks. When you die, you're going to see this is the case. Where the hell else do you think you're going to live? Where do you think heaven is? Anyways, so the whole idea, again, is in the pursuit of joy. Now, we have a situation going on in this solar system now And if you're alive in this solar system, there's a situation going on that's incredibly causing a lot of people misery. There's a lot of people. The majority of people upon earth, the majority are miserable. Majority are living in misery. The judgment that you're going to make on your true self when this connection is disrupted by death, rest in peace, is, did you do anything during this time? During the time that you were alive, I don't know when Kyle was born. I think it was probably 1990s or something. So 1990 to whatever Kyle was born. From 1992 to 2024, what did you witness upon this earth? Not only what did you witness, what events you partook in. Now, you don't have to be directly involved, but they have to be going on while you're living in a mortal life. Okay? So, what events and what was your reaction? What was your reaction? Okay? So, those are the only things you got to ask yourself. Because if you at time found that during this time period that Mr. Kyle B is alive, if he finds that he has happiness during this time, he is going to, as his advanced self, he's going to think, let me review those times when I was happy. And let me make sure that in my pursuit of joy, my personal pursuit of joy, I was not making another person miserable. Because this is how all human beings will be judged. Their works. Are they creating misery for another person? Now, I'm going to take you back now to why the real Illuminati, this incredibly intelligent group of people, why they decided, at the time they decided, to focus and place their Book of Mormon, their New American Scripture, center it on Jesus Christ and what was happening back then. Okay? This is important to understand. And you're going to find just how wicked this church really is. But of course, they don't think they're wicked, but neither do the Muslims. The Muslim people who are causing all the problems, the Jewish people, the Hindu people, no matter who you are in your nation, your great nation, you don't think you're wicked, you think you're righteous. But you're not. You're going to see how wicked you really are. This Book of Mormon was all based on the Christian Jesus Christ. Based on the Christian Jesus Christ, but there was another component. Let's put it over on this one. 4. You ready? Exclusively, listen again. Exclusively for the Native American people, the African American people, and African people, all dark-skinned people. This book was written, produced, and published exclusively to help the darker-skinned people of the world be able to deal with the white-skinned people. That's it. That's exactly what it was about. It was all about white people and how white people pursued their joy and what in pursuit of their joy it did to darker skinned people. And let me just call them black people. They're not black people. I mean, Jesus. Black people. That was it. Every lesson, every story was about these people, whether white or black, pursuing joy. And in the pursuit of their joy, they caused each other misery. They did. And when it came to the Jaredite nation, Jaredite nation did not have any black people in it. It was purely white. It talked about different classes, different people, different associations of white people dealing with each other in what are known as secret combinations, and what they did in pursuit of their joy that created misery on other people that eventually led to them being completely wiped out. There is no other purpose for the Book of Mormon than to give a storyline based on the Bible, based on the New Testament and based on the Old Testament, which was controlling the mindset of the white people. These two books controlled Anglo-Saxon white Europeans. That's important to understand, folks. The white Europeans throughout the world were doing incredibly terrible, evil things to darker skinned people in their pursuit of joy. As they pursued joy, these white people, long before 1830, were creating misery on these other people, on these other peoples. They were creating misery. And when you understand it, as we go through our lessons of real truth of the Book of Mormon, you're going to understand why this was written in 1830. And when you read it for yourself, remember what I've always said to anyone coming to this work. Read this book for yourself. Do not depend on some idiot, wicked Mormon missionary or other to explain it to you. Read it yourself before you even talk to them, because they'll show you. You're going to understand this Latter-day Saint bait and switch. Bait and switch. You're going to understand what happened and why the LDS Church changed their doctrine, changed their gospel from what was written in the Book of Mormon to what they currently have, which is a modern, vain, and foolish, imagination of the way that they act, causing all kinds of problems for themselves and for other people. There is a good reason why the members of the LDS, Latter-day Saint faith, Mormon faith, there is a good reason, folks, here's an asterisk, why they take more antidepressant drugs, than any other group of people upon earth. There's also a reason why the LDS Mormon people became the wealthiest church, the wealthiest religion, the wealthiest private organization in history, by far, in history. And the reason why both of these things took place is because of the bait and switch. Because instead of basing their church on the simple fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ, no matter what they say, just read the book yourself and you'll see. Instead of helping the Native American people and the dark-skinned people, the slaves, the enslaved, the marginalized throughout this world, instead of incorporating the Book of Mormon stories and lessons into their religion and what they teach, they have become the wealthiest people on earth, mostly all white-skinned. There was a Native American whom they made an apostle, a 70, a high leader in their church. His name was George P. Lee, who I had the privilege of knowing and interviewing before he died. So, this George P. Lee guy, when he was made, he was a Lamanite, or in other words, Native American person. When he became a general authority and got behind the scenes of that church, like I did as a security officer, remember that church, he found out how corrupt that church really was. He found out that the Book of Mormon, that the LDS teach this bait and switch, the Book of Mormon that the LDS people were pretending to believe in, was not. They weren't following any of the lessons. That they weren't doing anything for the Native American peoples. That in fact, in the late 19th century, as I've explained, they were all about wanting to become a state, which they did in 1896, I think. They all wanted to become a state, so they did everything they could to please the federal government back in the United States, that they were worthy of becoming Americans. And the only way they could do that, the only way they could prove, is they had to do a bait and switch. They could not tell anybody about the real lessons in the Book of Mormon, because the real lessons of the Book of Mormon are all about the Native American people being the most important people in the United States of America. That the white-skinned people should be using the gospel of Jesus Christ, the correct gospel of Jesus Christ, to help dark-skinned people. Again, read the book yourself. Do not listen to these evil people who will smile at you and tell you, we're righteous, we're wonderful people. They absolutely are not. Before I get more into this, I'm going to show you what I did at a time years ago, I think it was 2018, when I gave this evil doctrine. One of the things that I've been pointing out that's very important to understand as we get into the verse by verse, line by line, precept on precept from the Book of Mormon, okay, is this. When the United States was taking over Indian land, the United States of America, as it progressed and as it began to expand westward, at first, the federal government said, everything, let me get my little notes out here, and let me put in my terrible drawing of the United States of America, which I suck at doing. In Florida, Texas down here, I suck at it. And then you have Mississippi River. At first, the federal government, the U.S. federal government of the United States said, all right, we know we've come in and we've wiped these people out and we've pushed these people out and we feel kind of bad about that. And again, you got two sides. Remember what I'm telling you. The Indians were not a humble people. Because they weren't humble, some of them were. When you understand about the Trail of Tears that happened, that brought the people from this area and put them across the Mississippi River, and you understand these type of things, you'll see some humble people. They tried. It doesn't matter what treaties they were made that were made with the federal government and the Indian nations. The federal government didn't give a crap. Okay? And you remember something, this area in here, this part here, this was a Louisiana Purchase that came from France. The Spanish held this. Some of the French held other parts. But the federal government said at one time, okay, we're just going to go to the Mississippi River, M-I-S-S-I-S-S-I-P-P-I, and we're going to let the rest of this to the west be Indian country. Indian country. Yeah. So that's what they said. But those of you, this happened long before the gold rush of 1847, of the Mormons trek out here. When you understand all these things and you really understand what happened, is the white people had no intention of stopping at the Mississippi. There's no way they could, because they needed this land. They needed the prairies. They needed all this land. So that's where what happened in 1845, 1846, 1847, when the Mormons started coming out here, they came out into Indian territory. And Mormons, when they got settled in the Utah Valley, Utah, they're not going to talk about how they wiped out the locals. They're not going to talk about that at all. They're not going to talk about what Warren Porter Rockwell did. They're not going to talk about the Brigham Young established a brewery and a house of repute. Yes, a whorehouse, a house of prostitution at the point of the mountain there, and that Warren Porter Rockwell ran it for Brigham Young, and that they sold whiskey and beer and everything else out of that. They're not going to talk about these things. They're not going to talk how that prophet, Wovoka, was living in Nevada, knew about the Mormons in their Book of Mormon, and he read it, and he said, man, this is great. If this is true, Jesus Christ has basically made promises to the Native American people that he will come again and wipe out all the bad people like he did in the Book of Mormon story and establish the Indians again as this wonderful, wonderful nation of people. But if you read the Book of Mormon, you'll find that the federal government of the Gentiles, they were supposed to be doing this. They were supposed to be taking the words of Jesus as was happening. See, what they were doing, the Christian people, the Christian leaders who believed that Christianity is the truth, They were trying to teach the Indians. They were already trying to teach the Indians or convert them to Christianity. In South America, this was already happening. And all kinds of, in San Diego, in Santa Barbara, San Francisco, Monterey, all these different places, there were these Christian missions, Spanish Christian missions, Spanish, that were set up to convert all the Indian people, the Native Americans, to Christianity. They were trying that long before the United States even rebelled against Britain. But the thing is, they weren't teaching them right. They weren't teaching the Indians correct, and they weren't teaching the white people correct. And that's why in 1830, they needed to do something. 1830 was after the devastation that George Washington and Andrew Jackson and Harrison and all these other corrupt, evil men did to the American Indians, slaughtered them, allowed their soldiers to rape their women, put a bounty out on the heads of Indians, their scalps. They did all this prior to 1830. So they had to do something. And this incredible group, this incredible righteous group, if we can call them God, let's call them God. If you don't want to call them God, you can call them the three Nephites who did this wonderful work, who talked about their work. What was their work? You listen, you foolish, evil Americans, especially you foolish, evil Latter-day Saints, and you listen close. Because you have to remember something. These guys introduced themselves as the three Nephites and John the Beloved, and read what they said. Read how they introduced themselves, that they were going to do a marvelous work among the Jews and among the Gentiles, and that they were going to be, nobody would know who they were. This marvelous work and wonder is the marvelous work and wonder that I'm doing now. They commissioned me and recruited me like they did the young Joseph Smith to help them do this work. 31. Before the great and coming day when all people must surely stand before the judgment seat of Christ. Yeah, even among the Gentiles, this will be a great and marvelous work wrought by them before that judgment day. Now listen closely, and if you've heard the rest of this, you would understand what I'm saying. Here you are. I'm going to use Kyle Bradford as an example. Here's Mr. Kyle Bradford. KB. He's an LDS Mormon. He loves the Book of Mormon. He loves the Book of Mormon. But he reads it through eyes that are deceived by the church that he's going to. He doesn't read it according to the power of God, and he only reads snippets of it. He listens to guys like that Stevenson guy who transfigure the Word of God and make it their own. So Kyle B is reading the Book of Mormon, and he finds the Book of Mormon is incredible, but it also speaks that the Book of Mormon is the lesser portion. And if you only have the Book of Mormon, you're under condemnation. That you need the greater part. You need the greater part. You need the sealed portion. The sealed portion of this record, which was written and published in 2004. And if you want to believe that God did it, if you don't believe that God did it, then if you don't believe that the three Nephites did it, Nephites and John the Beloved, then Joseph Smith did it. Joseph Smith did the 1831. I did the 2004 one. That's fine. Christopher, the bearer of Christ, according to his name. 2004 did the sealed portion. Prophesied. It was prophesied in that Book of Mormon. And this Kyle heard about this Christopher guy, and he got a hold of this sealed portion, and he read it. He read it with a broken heart and a contrite spirit, and he asked his God, is this true? And he found out that it was true. Where before, Kyle B was a lost LDS Mormon who supported the Trump era, make America great again, isolate the Native Americans, the borders of the United States need to be protected, all this stuff. Once when Kyle believed that it was good and moral for the white skin to go in and completely annihilate all the Native American people and subject the African Americans, the Chinese, and all of the darker skin races to an marginalization, or in other words, a prejudice because of their race, because of the skin colors. He supported all that as an LDS Mormon until he read the sealed portion. When he read the sealed portion, he found out how wicked he really was. How wicked he was. He found out that this Kyle Bradford was wicked. Actually a wicked person. And luckily for him, because now he understands the truth. Now he no longer feels good about those borders. He no longer feels good about the persecution, the way that the LDS Latter-day Saint gospel is talking about this eternal family unit that has nothing but his vain and foolish imagination. Where did it come from? It came from the Brigham Young Church. Brigham Young didn't even believe it. If you think that Brigham Young believed in the eternal family unit, then you're gravely mistaken, because it wasn't taught even during his time. Why? Because he had all kinds of wives. He liked making children. And obviously, he didn't believe in this eternal family single unit. He believed in plural marriage, which Joseph did not. But this eternal family unit had nothing to do with anything until later. Because this wicked church, this vain and foolish church, the foolish imagination of this church, had to give something. It had to sell its Book of Mormon or sell its gospel in some way. So it's changed its doctrine from basically a eternal family unit from Adam, that we're all part of the same family unit. They do not preach reincarnation, that you reincarnate and come back again as another person. They do not teach that. Joseph Smith did, but they don't. They do not teach that Joseph Smith, as Joseph Smith said, that Adam is in fact the god Michael and was put asleep. The god Michael was put asleep, became the man Adam, but then Adam died. Michael became awake again, and that's the one who eternally exists. They don't believe that, but that's what's taught in their temple. Their church couldn't be more wicked. It couldn't be more wicked, but let's judge them and show them what's going to happen, because that's my job. Before that great judgment day, when a person dies, 32, and they die, and this Kyle Bradford died, and he found out, oh my God, I supported strong borders. I supported the white-skinned priesthood power was the most important thing. I did not do anything. I didn't hearken to the words of Jesus Christ. 34. Woe be unto him that will not hearken to the words of Jesus, and also to those whom he has sent among them, meaning the three Nephites, John the Beloved, of which this chapter talks about. For whoso receiveth not the words of Jesus, and I'm going to show you that these Latter-day Saints did not receive the words of Jesus, and the words of those whom he hath sent. Yeah, he sent the three Nephites, John the Beloved, in a way, and therefore he will not receive them at the last day. They're not even going to be received by the true Jesus. It would better be for the LDS people if they had not been born. It would have been better for them. Why? Because those evil people are misusing that Book of Mormon the way that they are. They've caused this bait and switch to happen. They don't pay any attention to their book. They don't pay any attention to the words that were written, even the words of Mormon, which were written in the Book of Mormon, when Jesus expounds everything, talks about everything. This is everything, both small and great. The great judgment, all these things. Yeah, at the last day, when all people, all kindreds and nations and tongues shall stand before God to be judged of their works, whether they be good or evil. Here it is, Mormons. You listen carefully. You fools. We'll come back to this verse 4. That great and last day when you're going to be judged according to your works. That if you be good to the resurrection of everlasting life, and if not, the resurrection of damnation, every single one of the Latter-day Saints, every single Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Jew, every single one is going to be judged by their works and find out that they're evil. And they will be resurrected to eternal damnation. In other words, what did that mean? Being received by the God who gave them right into a state of miserableness. There cannot be written in this book, in the Book of Mormon, even 100th part of the things which Jesus did truly teach the people. But the plates of Nephi do contain a more part of the things which he taught the people. I am the only one on this planet who has access to, quote unquote, all the plates of Nephi. When you understand that poem and exactly what it means, you'll see that I have access to those. And there's not a damn other leader in any church that does. But the things I've written in the Book of Mormon, saith Mormon, which are a lesser part of the things which Jesus taught the people, I've written them to the intent they may be brought again to the people from the Gentiles. What was the purpose of the Book of Mormon? To bring these words unto the Native American people from the white-skinned European Christian pieces of crap who just destroyed them and took their land. According to the words which Jesus has spoken. Read the words that Jesus has spoken. Read them all. You'll see how he prophesies about the Native American peoples, about he would rise up a nation to help them if they will just repent. But if they don't repent, he also prophesied some incredible things that are going to happen, including that earthquake, Latter-day Saints, that's going to hit your Wasatch Front one day and completely wipe out your church and its leaders and all of its headquarters. And it's my hope and prayer, and I don't say this maliciously, there's only no other way to open your hardened hearts and blindness to have that hit during your general conference and destroy tens of thousands of you at the same time, so that you know, oh my God, why didn't our prophets here and revelators who also died with us know of these things? And if it so be, 10, that they will not believe the Book of Mormon, which they do not, then shall the greater things, the seal portion, be withheld from them. I's about write them all, says Mormon, all which were engraven upon the plates of Nephi, but the Lord forbade it, saying, I will try the faith of my people. He tried the faith. Joel Smith said it many times. You guys have disregarded the new covenant of the Book of Mormon. Now you're under condemnation. And you're going to reap all of this, you evil people. You evil people. Now, my lesson today is about this very evil Latter-day Saint church and what they've done to this Book of Mormon, the bait and switch that they place, that they've done to this world. It's terrible. It's terrible. Again, I say anyone who's interested in this Book of Mormon, you cannot listen, not to me, not to anyone else. You must listen to God. Just approach God in prayer, however you do it. Approach God. Read this book yourself. Do not listen to the deceived teenagers that go about to pull this bait and switch. The bait and switch is, oh, read this book because God will tell you that it's true. And since it's true, we are the church that has brought it out. And we want you to join with us because that's the only way you're going to be sealed to your family forever. Not in the Book of Mormon. Never has been, never will be. Priesthood is condemned in the Book of Mormon. Genealogy work is condemned in the Book of Mormon. Baptism for those who died without the gospel, condemned in the Book of Mormon. Wealth and riches condemned in the Book of Mormon. But they pull this bait and switch on you folks, this Latter-day Saint bait and switch. So I tell you right now, read it yourself and pay attention. It is not as boring as Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain said it was. He didn't read it. Nobody explained it to him. Nobody said this. Nobody said that this teenager, uneducated teenager who made it up, Joseph Smith, who was commanded by God to write it, they don't see how this guy was one of the most geniuses and what an author of the things he wrote. And you Mormons, listen to you. God, the Lord didn't tell Joseph Smith to write the Book of Mormon. You know why you don't know this? Because you're evil and you don't read your own scriptures. So let's read your scriptures. Shall we? Let's go to your Doctrine and Covenants, section 24, 1. Behold, thou wast called Joseph, chosen to write the Book of Mormon and to my ministry. Right there. You got it. You got it. What was his ministry to? Joseph's ministry, he tried to get these white-skinned, arrogant, prideful fools who wanted to go into Missouri and set up their white-skinned New Jerusalem to concentrate on the marginalized, the dark-skinned people who were being abused by the transgressions of the white-skinned people. So I say to anyone interested in what really happened, the real truth of the Book of Mormon, the real truth, folks. If you want to know the real truth, you don't need to listen to me. Read it yourself. Read it to yourself to understand it, because once you do, it'll direct you right to me and this marvelous work and a wonder. And to the sealed part, the sealed portion, which is the most important one. And after you get done reading the sealed portion, then you're going to see what I mean. You're going to see how wicked that church really is. But you don't even need to start there. In March of 2004, I was mandated by this group who recruited me, same group that recruited Joseph Smith, to send to the wicked LDS members, leaders, the book of Lehi. What was retranslated from the beginning of the gold plates, the book of Lehi. Retranslated. And they poo-pooed it. Probably didn't even read it, didn't care. But guess what? Because you didn't pay attention, and you're not paying attention to the Book of Mormon, when this hits you, and it's already hitting you, you're not going to be ready. And you're going to be in a hell that has no end. Because Nephi's vision of you in the latter days carries this prophecy, carries this incredible prophecy about these three Nephites and John the Beloved not being among the Gentiles and the Jews and they not knowing them. This great and marvelous work. Before it talks about that, it talks about these people. It shall come to pass that if the Gentiles shall hearken to the Lamb of God in that day, you give them the Book of Mormon, which they don't, and they didn't, and they haven't, and they aren't, and they will not because they're prideful, arrogant people. If they will, then they're going to be numbered among the house of Israel and be blessed people on the promised land forever. But they're not. And that great pit which had been digged for them by that great and abominable church, which was found by the devil and his children, shall be filled with those who dug it. Next lesson, I'm going to explain this, folks. Next lesson, I'm going to explain this great and abominable church in ways that it's never been explained, so you understand exactly what it means. Exactly what it means. This captivity of the devil. 5, this angel's talking. There thou hast beheld that if the latter-day saints repent, it shall be well with them. And thou also knowest that the covenants of the Lord in the house of Israel, and thou also heard that those who repenteth not must perish. Woe be to the Gentiles, and so be it they harden their hearts against the Lamb of God. For the time cometh, saith the Lamb of God, I will work a great and marvelous work among the children of men, a work which will be everlasting, either on the one hand or the other. And it is certainly not a church that's the wealthiest church in this world, whose per capita members take more antidepressants, prescription drugs than any other people upon earth. Yeah, it is not them at all. It's a marvelous work and a wonder that has delivered the people of the world to the hardness of the hearts and blindness of their minds. It's my job to explain this. My job to set up these Church of the Lamb of God, the true Church of the Lamb of God. That's what we've done. That's what this is. There is no other church that's going to give you the true church, the true gospel, the real truth. There is none. It's the tree of life. Only through this church and only through this church will the tree of life give you the fruit, which you could understand is the intelligence of God. The glory of God is intelligence. In other words, light and truth. Truth being things as they really are. This will give you that. As you partake of this fruit, just like many of these people have, and you can look in there, look at their testimonies, many of these people's testimonies if you like, and you will find how these people have partaken of this fruit, and they can't deny the power of that fruit. They cannot deny it. You go here, there. Go. Read your testimonies. They can't deny it because they didn't listen to me. They read it. Back to your Book of Mormon. Again, I spoke many times about the relation between this prophecy given in the Book of Mormon and the Book of Revelation. All this is very important. So to get you folks ready for the next lesson about the great and abominable church, I'm going to take you to how it was written, how they described it in this book, this incredible, incredible book. This is the book that was published in 2006 that was meant to fulfill this prophecy in the Book of Mormon. For those evil people of you who don't pay attention, don't read your own book, it was prophesied that the unfolding of John's book of Revelation would come when the work of the Father commenced. It's right here in Ether chapter 4. Come on, the Gentiles, and I'll show you how wicked you really are. The things have been hid up from you. And then shall my revelation, which I have caused to be written by my servant John, be unfolded in the eyes of all the people. When you see this happening, you know the work of the Father has commenced. There's only no other way. Unless you understand the book of Revelation and what it means, you don't have anything. So I'm going to take you, for those of you who don't like Scripture, you can go through this and it'll give you everything you need to know. It sets a tone, it sets an underlying explanation of the incredible book of Revelation, unlike anything else that's ever been written. And nobody's ever going to be able, ever in history, to discount what this book unfolds about this incredible, incredible book. But I'm going to take you to this chapter where it talks about this great and abominable church. Because in the book of Revelation, this great and abominable church is called another name. It's called the beast. Same thing, same way. They just used the beast in the book of Revelation, and they used the great and abominable church. Let's read this chapter together, the beast, and then I'll end it on that. You wicked Latter-day Saints, evil people. You wicked, wicked people. And I speak to my family, I speak to my kid brother, whom I love, to my father. If you support that church in any way, shape, or form, you will experience a hell which hath no end. Oh, let me take you before we get to this, so you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, because in the Book of Mormon, they have Jesus talking about these things. When Jesus is talking to the people, the resurrected Jesus, and he's telling the people everything that they need to know from the beginning of time to the end of time, and Mormon isn't allowed to write about it. It talks about everything that's going to happen until that great and last day when all people and all kindreds and tongues shall stand before God to be judged of their works, whether they be good or whether they be evil. If they be good to the resurrection, everlasting life, and if they be evil to the resurrection of damnation. My brother Joe, my family, those who have even listened to me think I'm nuts. You're going to suffer an eternal damnation, a resurrection into damnation that you've never even imagined. You've never imagined. And what is this all based on? What is all this based on? You're going to see what it's based on. Here it is. It's based on the words of Jesus as they were presented in the book of Mormon, in the New Testament, and rephrased perfectly in the Book of Mormon, talking about this everlasting punishment right there. My family, Joe, you, everyone who doesn't pay attention to this is going to die, as I explained before, and wake up in a state of incredible misery in hell. Because in your pursuit of joy, in your pursuit of capitalism, the way that you do it, the way you live your life, you have caused many other people to suffer. And here it is, paraphrasing Jesus Christ as it was given here. Again, compare 3 Nephi 26. That great and last day when all people, all nations shall stand by God, before God to be judge of their works. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations. He shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep, the very, very, very few people in this world, on his right hand, but the goats, the majority, which includes all Latter-day Saints, on his left. The king shall say unto them on his right hand, Come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And this is why you're being judged this way. Because when I was hungered, you gave me meat. And I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. Read it, you foolish, evil people. In your pursuit of wealth, riches, and the basic necessities of life for you and your corrupt family unit, you are causing other people throughout this world a great amount of misery. And you will be held accountable for that. It doesn't matter if you do it directly or indirectly. Yeah. And then you evil people will say, why am I having this hell? And you're going to see that you didn't do anything to help those people. You thought you did by giving your $19, $20 to some charity group, or paying your ridiculous $20 a month to your fucking evil church for your tithe, for your fast offerings. Oh, this is helping the poor. No, you're not. You're going to go in everlasting punishment. And you're going to think, well, why did I see Jesus? Oh my God, when did I see you sick and I visited you not? When I see hunger, you thirst. Verily I say unto you, every single person is trying to migrate in the United States, who's trying to immigrate to Europe, who's trying to have a better life, that's given to you folks because of capitalism, and because of the way that your colonization and the way that you pursue the free market throughout this world, this great and abominable church, which I will discuss later. Because of you, you fucking fools, these people are suffering throughout this world. And you, that's a sharp two-edged sword coming out of my mouth, will go to hell that you have no idea that's going to hit you. So let's go to the unfolding of John's book of Revelation, shall we? And talk about the beast. So you can see how John himself, yes, the person who you would associate with John the Beloved, wrote these things and asked me to do my best to make them so other people could understand, because they write so much intelligently. The first 10 sections of this book were written by him, the person who actually knew exactly what all this was about. So you listen close. Michael Kuroda says, are opiates antidepressants? Absolutely. I didn't say I wasn't guilty of the same things. The beast. The individual pursuit of happiness has led to the rapid intellectual and technological evolution of the human species. Though these advances have come from the wise ones journeying to fulfill the measure of their creation individually, they have had little effect, if any, on the desired end of their existence, happiness. Let's read this first line. The individual pursuit of happiness led to the rapid intellectual and technological evolution of the human species. Listen up, my brother Joe, my family, and all you evil LDS people. Your prophet, seer and revelator Joseph Smith talked to you way long ago, about a year or so after the Book of Mormon was published, and he said this in 1831. Guess what? Yeah, the fullness from the gospel is supposed to be claimed that you guys have completely corrupted. And he says this: I am no respecter of person, and I will that all men shall know the day speedily cometh, the hour is not yet, in 1831, but is nigh at hand, when peace shall be taken from the earth, and the devil shall have power of his own dominion. That's what this is all about. The individual pursuit of happiness have led to the rapid intellectual and technological evolution of the human species. In their pursuit of happiness, they have caused poverty beyond your wildest imagination. You'll see. That computer you have in front of you, folks, that cell phone, all these great things you have in these so-called Western countries, do you understand what other people are going through the rest of the world to provide you with your fucking stuff? Well, let's read on. Though these advances have come from the wise ones yearning to fill the measure of their creation individually, they have had little effect, if any, on the desired end of their existence, happiness. When more knowledge is acquired by the whole, it has the potential of creating widespread equality and understanding. But this threatens individuality, the purpose of human existence. Knowledge is what is agreed upon through mutual experience and perception. Remember what I showed you at the first? Perception. It is not synonymous with real truth, because knowledge changes as other facts are acquired, which negate the accepted truth upon which it was based, upon which the knowledge was based. The accumulation of knowledge does little to bring happiness to a person, except as a distinction that protects or promotes individuality. Let's wait right here. All right, there's no God, there's no real Illuminati, there's no Joseph Smith, no resurrected nobody, no three Nephites, no John Beloved. I wrote this world. Cheers! Me! My intelligent brain. It came out of my intelligent brain. I am a fucking incredible writer. Because let's go on. To protect this self-perception and set a distinction between themselves and others, some seek to acquire superior knowledge that sets them above the masses. When these are accepted as being more knowledgeable, they take advantage of the perception. These gain power over the need of their followers to maintain individuality and feel set apart from others. These become the leaders of nations. I'm American. I'm proud to be American, because at least I know I'm free. That Indian country out there, my Apache helicopter will destroy any enemy in that country. Yes, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our nation's battles. Do you know what happened in the halls of Montezuma? Do you know what happened in Tripoli? You don't, do you? Because you're fucking evil. And you don't try to understand it. But let's go on with my incredible writing. Some are not convinced of a leader's superior knowledge and understanding, because in so doing, they lose their own individuality by succumbing to the direction in which the leader has pointed the followers. These rebel against the leader and become enemies of the leader's self-image and power. Again, the actual person who wrote this is a lot more emotionally stable than I am. Doesn't use profanity. And he writes in such an incredible, intelligent way. I did my best to break it down for you people. The first leader recognized in the human experience is the parent who forms a family unit. Through no choice of its own, in its early years, the child becomes an inculcated follower of the traditions, beliefs, and customs, the knowledge of its parents. The parents base their knowledge on time-honored respect for what has been taught to them. To protect these traditions, parents unite with other followers. They form communities of families that are led in the same direction by whomever or whatever they have chosen as their leader. These leaders protect the knowledge upon which the followers have agreed. These communities form cities and nations based on shared perceptions of individuality. The nations are led by the leaders who have convinced their followers of their superior knowledge and ability to protect the core of their power, the family unit established through individuality. Leaders answer to themselves or to the images and illusions they have created that support their personal agendas. If the leader has the support of the nation, then the people have been convinced that whomever or whatever guides and gives direction to the leader is truth. Again, I want you to refer to this wicked church who Joseph Smith and Brigham Young never taught the eternal family unit. Ever, ever, ever. The sealing power they used was sealing everybody together as one Adam's family. But it didn't work for the people in the Utahns, the Mormons, the Latter-day Saints in the 1890s when they were seeking to become a state in the United States of America. They needed to not only get rid of polygamy, but they needed to get rid of this idea that the Indians were important people. So they helped the United States government not only destroy the Indians, but did other things to put themselves up. Hey, we got this gospel. We got this. Guess what happened to me, says one of their prophets. I was in the St. George Temple praying fervently to God. And lo and behold, the founders and the fathers of this country, George Washington, all these guys, Christopher Columbus, all these guys came to me in a vision and told me to please do their work, to be baptized for them so that they can receive the ordinances. Yes, I'm a prophet, seer, and revelator of this vain and foolish, corrupt, evil religion. But anyway, leaders answer to themselves or to the images and illusions they have created that support their personal agendas. If the leader has the support of the nation, then the people have been convinced that whomever and whatever guides and gives direction to the leader is truth, right? Yeah. In ancient times, humans honored and worshiped their leaders because they were convinced that unseen and powerful gods led and directed them. As knowledge increased and spread to the masses, these unseen gods were replaced with other intangible gods, which had just as much power over the minds and motives of the people as did their mortal leaders. Whatever God is chosen, the leaders maintain control over the people by perpetuating and promoting the God in which the people believe. Let me quote the God of this world, who hears and answers prayers and is the only entity on this planet that hears and answers prayers. Ah, you've looked over my kingdom, huh? Well, with gold and silver, popes and priests, armies and navies, gold and silver, popes and priests, armies and navies, I will reign with blood and horror upon this earth. Unseen gods religiously motivate humans to revere the whole to which the individuals belong, subjecting all to the will of these mysterious forces. These gods are known and accepted because people have placed their faith and support in mortal leaders who have convinced them of the supernatural essence in which they should believe. Again, this is about the beast in the book of Revelation, about the great and abominable church in the book of Mormon. It can be profoundly stated that a god is the equivalent of a powerful human motivator. By utilizing this knowledge, leaders establish themselves above others. I'm God's only true messenger, prophet, seer, and revelator, fulfilling their true nature of individual self-awareness, but are never able to satisfy their followers' desires to arrive at the same awareness. Well, if you're a prophet of God, why can't I be? If God talks to you, why can't he talk to me? And thus you got all these fools going out throughout this earth doing all these crazy things because they think God's talking to them. Because they believed in a religion once where God was talking to one person, a religious leader, who turned out to be evil. So if I still believe in God, but if my leader turns out to be evil, I can still talk to God. So I'm going to create my own religion. Oh, Jesus H. Christ. Being the wise ones that they are, humans soon developed a powerful human motivator, a God that would allow them, whether leader or follower, to maintain the illusion that their existence was indeed leading to a full awareness of their individuality. They created specific values placed on each other and the resources of the natural earth. These values would always sustain a continual state of distinction and division, assuring individuality, the balance of human happiness. These values, the beast and the great and abominable church, the beast mentioned in the book of Mormon, in the book of Revelation, and the great and abominable church, everything about them, these values that they teach, started something like this. The story of Ugg and Thug. A long time ago, you got to remember what happened in the feudal system over in Europe. This is mentioned in the Book of Mormon about this. The Europeans, the nations of the Europeans, have this great and abominable church being established among them. When you understand what happened back then, and I'll go over it in the next lesson, then you'll see that this story in Ugg and Thug is a simplified child's version of exactly how what was occurring over in Europe that created this God, this church, the great and abominable church, this beast. A long time ago, long before the discovery of silver and gold, there lived a man named Ugg. Ugg lived in a community of people who prospered well for that time, herding sheep, raising cows, and growing grain. One day, while Ugg was fishing in a stream near his home, he noticed a shiny rock exhibiting its countenance through the crystal clear water. That's a nice-looking stone, Ugg thought as he retrieved it from its resting place. As Ugg pondered on the discovery he had made, he wondered what use this pretty rock could have. He decided that although the rock was beautiful, it served him no real purpose, so he threw it back. Now that he had discovered the existence of the rock, he began to notice that the stream bed where he was fishing was full of the peculiar-looking stone. Ugg's neighbor Thug was a lazy sort and spent many a day down by the stream as a philosopher and a teacher and a story maker, idly dreaming up ways, religious leader, he could get out of the responsibilities of work that were required of him by the community of people where he lived. One day, Thug noticed a shiny rock that his friend Ugg had discarded. Hey, thought Ugg, I bet I could convince Ugg's wife that this pretty stone is worth a mammoth meat pie. Something Thug loved to eat, but was too lazy to make himself. Thug took the stone and fashioned it into a trinket and gave it to Ugg's wife, who, upon seeing it, immediately fell in love with its shiny attributes. Wow, this is beautiful, said Ugg's wife. She made Thug his pie and couldn't wait to show off her new trinket to her friends. Wow, thought Thug, if Ugg's wife liked the stone, maybe all the other women will like one too. I'll never have to make another mammoth pie again. Let me put something in there, interpolate something in there, as you read about the great and abominable church in the Book of Mormon. If Ugg's wife, wow, thought Ugg, if Ugg's wife liked the clothing that I presented her, yes, the fine clothing, maybe all the other women will like fine clothing too. I'll never have to make another and never have to work again. Thug went down to the stream bed and gathered up all the shiny rocks he could find. When the other men's wives wanted a shiny trinket like Ugg's wife, their husbands searched in vain for the rocks Thug had already taken. The women were distraught that they could not have a trinket like Miss Ugg. They couldn't dress in the fine jewelry and the fine clothing and all these fine things that were being created in the cities throughout Europe. Oh my gosh, I can't do it. These women began to pester their husbands until the pestering became unbearable. The men went to Thug and asked him for some of his shiny rocks for their wives. Well, what will you give me for one of these rocks? Thug asked. Well, I'll build you a fence, said one man. And I will give you 3 cows to put inside the fence, said another. Soon Thug, the laziest man in town, had the best house, barn, fence, and animals in all the community. He became what was known as a feudal lord. A feudal lord. Think of Robin Hood, the sheriff of Nottingham. A fantasy story that all of you should understand. Thug spent most of his time looking and digging for the now precious stones. The more he found, the less there were for others to find. It's exactly what the Spanish, Portuguese, British, and French kingdoms did. Once money and gold became the bartering process throughout Europe, they sent ships of explorers out to find more gold and silver. It wasn't long before Thug made a list of the things for which he could trade his stones. He divided his stones up into groups according to size. The littlest stone he traded for a cow, a sheep, or an ox. A bigger stone he gave in exchange for a new shed to be built on his land. And the biggest stones, well, these he kept for himself because he knew he could break them into littler stones that he could trade for practically anything he wanted. Mm-hmm. Ug's cow died, and he didn't have any way to procure milk for his growing children. And so Ugg asked his wife if she would let him have her trinket so he could trade it to his brother, whose wife had one but wanted two, for one of his brother's cows. Reluctantly, Ugg's wife gave up her trinket so that her children could have milk. Ugg traded the stone for one of his brother's cows. Ugg's brother Shrug took the stone, which was way too big for just one cow, and traded it to another neighbor for 6 sheep and 5 bushels of wheat. Ugg's brother never told him that his wife's stone was worth more than just one cow. He knew his brother needed a cow more than he needed a stone that he couldn't eat, wear, or sleep in. So he decided he had done his brother a favor, and for the favor, he would get more for the stone than what he gave for it. This situation went on for some time. Before long, the stones were worth much more to the people of the community than any of their possessions. Bitcoin. Think about it. Investments in stocks all started in Europe. The most evil process that we have ever done is created the stock market, where those who do nothing for a company gain the profit and dividends therefrom the work of others. But anyways, back to the story. One wise man set up a little business by the bank of the stream where the stones had first been found. His wise premise was to help people save their stones and get more stones by lending them out to others in return for a bigger stone than what they had borrowed in the first place. When this man lent out a stone that was the size of a walnut, he told the borrowers that they would have to pay him back the stone the size of an apple. And when the bigger stone was paid back as agreed, the man would then chip off a little bit of the apple-sized stone for himself and give the person who had deposited his stone in the business a stone which was bigger than what he had originally deposited. What an easy way to get more stones without finding any or trading anything for them, boasted the man. Since his business seemed to be successful by the bank of the stream, he called his business the bank. Soon the people of the community were spending far more time figuring out ways to get and trade stones than they were raising things to eat, making things to wear, or building houses. Listen again, you foolish, evil, fucking capitalists. Soon the people of the community were spending far more time figuring out ways to trade on the stock market.